सबसे ज्यादा तो लग रहा है तुम थके हो। नहीं हाँ एक अपनी तुम स्कूल गए थे क्या? नहीं सबसे ज्यादा पढ़ाई तुम ही नहीं की। सब लोग गए थे ना तो तुम क्यों इतना थक गए? हाँ क्या क्या है स्कूल में? साफ सफाई, इंडिपेंडेंस डे का तैयारी। हम रोड पे हमारे भाई वोटर काम क्या नहीं होता है क्लास हो गया है हॉलीडे है क्या? हाँ नहीं बोलना भी नहीं देखना साइड पे नहीं आया होगा ना कहीं पे मैसेज चेक करो मैसेज नहीं आया पर हॉलीडे हाँ हमारे के लिए साथ है ना तुमको बोलना भी है एक घंटे के लिए जाना है बोला है okay now what we are doing improvement we are not done no we are not we did the production the nutrients production okay we form manure fertilizer acha manure fertilizer only that much it's cropping intercropping crop rotation okay now we need to do for crop protection management volume 2 this is the last chapter right after that why do we follow is there natural resources there more to chapters why do we follow it बताए इंस्टाग्राम पर भी बोली है कौन सा करना है crop production government and resources and this so what is next now we talk about crop production management crop production इसमें है नहीं किधर तो वही है मैं बोल मैम क्या हुआ इम्प्रूवमेंट हाँ यू आर देयर द लास्ट क्लास पहले का क्लास इसके पहले का क्लास लास्ट इश्यूज when we did the test last week issues खत्म हो गया 2 हफ्ते तक एब्सेंट थे why 2 हफ्ते तक कौन से स्कूल में एग्जाम होता है ट्यूसडे को मंडे को चालू हुआ और मंडे को खत्म तो 1 हफ्ता हुआ ना तो मंडे को नहीं आया क्यों नहीं आए थे एक सेकंड फिर पिछला पूरा हफ्ता तक फ्री था तो नहीं आया हां अभी बोलो नहीं आया अच्छा और कोई बहाना मिला नहीं सच में बात है सच में अच्छा मैं पूछूं तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स हां पूछो तुम्हारा दोस्त कहाँ रह गया वो तो स्कूल में नहीं आया वो आया था फ्राइडे को स्कूल जाना क्लासेस जाने के ऑप्शन ही लेके तुम गए वो इधर आया था फ्राइडे को आया था उसको चेहरा दिखाया था हाँ वो चला गया अच्छा so now next is crop production management we were talking about and another concept of crop production we had talked about some major concepts like we were talking about crop rotation manure right that was the last topic we were studying yes ma'am manure and fertilizers and green manure so this is what we had discussed last that when we are talking about manure when we are talking about fertilizer we did the mix cropping intercropping so this revise 2 minutes now when we are talking about the process of production management what is necessary nutrients are necessary nutrients in the form of manure nutrients in the form of fertilizer so what were some of the differences we are supposed to remember that if it is manure can be added to the plant in any quantity what about fertilizers a definite quantity you have to put a definite quantity you have to apply what next if it is manure the plant gets different type of nutrients in small amounts Manure majorly is formed by the process of decomposition of the organic matter. So now the manure would generally contain different type of nutrients, some macronutrients, some micronutrients in small or large amounts. But if it is fertilizer, it is made in the factories. So fertilizers would generally contain what? Specific type of nutrients in large amounts. Now, fertilizers would basically contain the nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, potassium. So major type of nutrients which are necessary for the plant. Nutrients which are majorly necessary for the plant. Only those type of nutrients would be majorly present in the plant. Fertilizers. Next, what is the third difference to remember? To apply manure, is there any particular dose? No, there is no particular dosage. For applying fertilizers, is there any particular dosage? Yes. We cannot apply too much of fertilizer. Why are you laughing? You are so happy to see your friends. Of course, you may be very happy. You may roam around after the class for another half an hour. But every class is only for 1 hour. Concentrate. So now that we are talking about the process of application of the manure and the fertilizer, the way we apply manure, can we apply fertilizer? No, fertilizer has to be applied only in small doses. Manure, we can apply in any particular dose because excess also does not harm the plant. I apply manure and I apply fertilizer in 2 plants, same time. Am I going to see that the growth is exactly the same way? No, in the plant where I have applied manure, the growth will be very slow. Because the absorption of manure takes a long time, because the manure particles, chunks are big enough, irregular, because it is not machine made. It is naturally been produced, so the chunks are big. And this has to be broken down with waters and get dissolved. And that's the reason the plants take a long time to absorb. What about the fertilizer? Just like some powder. You sprinkle and then immediately they get dissolved in the water and the plants start absorbing. So if it is fertilizer, only in 3-4 days to 1 week time we get to see a rapid growth in the plants. For manure, it may take 15 days to a month also. But manure, even if you are applying in large amount for 3-4 months continuously, 5-6 months continuously, 1-2 years continuously, the soil is only becoming better. Can the soil ever become barren by using fertilizers?
Yes.
Yes. But by applying manure, never. By applying manure, the land will never become barren. But by applying fertilizers, of course, the soil organisms are killed. And the land, after 5 years, after 6 years, after 10 years, will become barren. So these are some differences that we have to talk about. What are the 3 main cropping patterns we had studied? What are the 3 main cropping patterns we had studied? The 3 main, try to remember those. We had already talked about this. Now, the most important things, I take a revision again. What are the 3 main cropping patterns? Number 1 is crop rotation, intercropping, mixed cropping. So what is the basic difference between mixed cropping? Grow 5-6 types of crops together at random. At random.
Intercropping is.
And what about intercropping in a definite pattern? But the objective of intercropping and mixed cropping is more or less the same. What are the 2 most important objectives? Why should a farmer go for intercropping or mixed cropping?
So if one crops or one field of crops is infected, the other one should not be.
If one part of the land is infected, one type of a crop is infected by any type of a pathogen, fungus, nematode, virus, the same virus or the nematode will generally not affect another plant because surrounding that say one plant X, the surrounding plants are not all X, it is Y or B or X or A or B. So now what is happening? I talk about a plot of land where oranges are grown. But surrounding oranges, I'm not only growing oranges, but I'm growing banana, I'm growing some cauliflower, or I'm growing some sugarcane. So what is happening? Similar type of crop, similar type of season, of course, it has to be. But around surrounding oranges, I'm growing another 3 types of crops. So by chance, my orange plants are infected by some fungus. Will this affect the sugarcane and the banana? Not probably, because one type of pathogen generally affects one type of plant. Like I talk about certain pets, if at all anybody has at home, the virus infecting the pet and the virus infecting the human most of the time will not be the same. The bacteria infecting the human and the bacteria infecting the dog at home will most of the time not be the same. So that's the reason we talk about two different type of related animals, two different type of related plants, not necessarily they will be affected by the same type of pathogen or fungi or bacteria. That's the reason grow different type of plants together. That is one. What is the other? What is the other significance of doing crop intercropping or mixed cropping? What was the other significance?
Kind of crops.
To produce more type of crop productivity. Okay, just there's one more point we have discussed. Maximum utilization of the nutrients. So maximum. Otherwise, if I'm growing only oranges and oranges and oranges and oranges, oranges utilizes only a large amount of zinc and molybdenum and iron and magnesium. The soil has another 10 type of nutrients which are not used because the orange plants utilizes only these 4 nutrients. So I'm growing oranges also, I'm growing mangoes also, I'm growing sugarcane also. So these 3 or 4 different type of plants will be utilizing all the different type of nutrients. So almost all the nutrients are used up. Almost all the nutrients are used up. How is crop rotation different? How is crop rotation different than these 2 methods? In case of crop rotation, what's happening? In one season, say suppose this year, from January to July, I'm growing one type of a crop. Now after July, I'm ready to harvest, my land is empty. I want to grow another type of some winter crops. Should I start applying fertilizers and start growing cotton now? Then what should I do? I have made the land leguminous plants. So I have been growing certain type of crops right from January to May or June or July. Harvest season over. Now my land is empty. I am supposed to grow some other type of crops till December, January, February. So what am I supposed to do? Of course, I'm not supposed to apply for these fertilizers, which most of the time farmers do. But then, what would be some of the scientific methods? Scientific methods is better not apply the fertilizers, better not apply fertilizers, rather make the land naturally fertile by growing leguminous plants. So the beans and the pea and the gram and the lentils, I will start growing on the land. But what are the 2 advantages of growing legumes? I am naturally making the soil fertile because the legumes, the leguminous plants can fix nitrogen because they have got root nodules and the root nodules are rich sources of bacteria. And the bacteria can trap the atmospheric nitrogen to nitrates. We have discussed all this the other day. And what is the other benefit? Why should one grow legumes alternately? To make the soil naturally fertile and obviously at the same time parallelly get enough of productivity. So when I'm growing legumes, of course I'm getting a production of pea at the end of the season, production of gram or pulses or dal at the end of the season. But in the next season again, I have finished harvesting by the month of January. Whatever legumes I have prepared, I have been planting. Whatever legumes I have planted, now the harvest season is almost about January, February. So I have finished the process of harvesting. My land is empty now. I again want to grow some guava. This season I want to grow some guava. So now do I have to generally think on making the land nutritive? No, I was already growing legumes. My soil has already become naturally nutritive. Now this application of some manure can do the job of fulfilling growth. So crop rotation means one season grow one type of a crop, next season legume. So first season grow maybe oranges, next season legume. Then next season again maybe grow sugarcane, legume. Then cabbages, then again legume. Whatever you grow, the next season always should be followed by legumes and legumes. So now what to do? By growing legumes, we always make the soil naturally fertile. But now as the plants are growing, the plants suffer from 2 different problems. What is it? As the plants are growing, there may be unwanted plants growing surrounding them. The plants are growing, there may be unwanted plants surrounding them. Now the small plants that we grow in our window seat also we come across. No? Maybe we are growing some roses or marigold or etc. tulsi or etc. Surrounding this main plant, we get to see that some unwanted grasses start developing. Creepers, climbers, and some unwanted tall. Now in the farmland, it's so much to grow. In the farmland, tall grasses unnecessarily keep growing there. What are these type of unwanted plants called? Weeds. What are these unwanted plants called? Weeds. So the farmer every time makes it a point that when the main plants have already started growing, always keep spraying some weedicides, fungicides, herbicides so that the plants are protected from any type of an infection. The plants are protected from any type of an infection. And second is
There's no total loss.
the nutrient, the main plant should not suffer from nutrient loss. Because if the weeds are growing, the weeds are taking away the nutrient from the soil. I have got a particular type of a flowering plant growing in the farm. I'm growing marigolds. Or maybe I'm growing roses, and the roses are supposed to grow quite big enough. Yellow colored roses, red colored roses, I'm growing. But unless and until the roses are of a definite shape, size, I'm not able to market them properly. The economic demand will not be there. Commercial demand will not be there. But I get to see surrounding these plants, there are so many grasses that have started developing. And I have not been cutting them for the last 1 month. So what has happened? Am I going to see a difference in the growth of the rose plant that I'm trying to grow? Obviously, the roses will become smaller. They will shrink in their size. The roses will become smaller in size. The plants will become shorter. Why? Because there's a competition going on now between the weeds and the main plant. The weeds are taking away so much of nutrition in their process of growth. But are they giving us anything productive? No, it's just a waste. So the main plant is not getting so much of nutrient. The main plant does not get the nutrient. So the growth of the fruit, crop, flower, all gets disturbed. So what to do now with these weeds? Two different things, two different processes. Either you pluck them, uproot them, and throw them. Apply weedicides. Not a good method at all. Apply weedicides, fungicides, because these are chemical substances, not a good method at all. Uproot them and throw them. But they will again grow. These are weeds, they will again keep growing. So what is the best way to do? Uproot them but not throw them outside the land. Uproot them and again mix them in the land itself by plowing the land, mincing the land and mixing the land. I have uprooted those grasses, but I allow the grasses to be in the land itself, in the soil itself, and I mix them with the soil. So the grasses and the roots and the stem of the unwanted plants are all broken down, are all chopped, and now they are getting mixed with the soil. And my main plants are growing. So around the main plant, the soil has got a rich deposit of these green plants, where the parts of the plants are all torn and scattered and all distributed in different parts of the land. What is this method of making the soil rich in organic matter known as by mixing the weeds with the soil, a process known as making green manure. What is green manure? How do we make green manure? This is the way of making green manure. What do we do for making the green manure? What are we supposed to do? Uproot the weeds and mix them with the soil itself so that the soil becomes natural. Because the parts of the plant they are going to decompose. And if they get decomposed, are they going to add nutrients to the soil? Yes, humus. So now the soil is getting naturally fertile. The soil is getting naturally fertile. Weeds, name some, underline in your book also: Xanthium, Parthenium, and Cyprinus rotundus. You may underline these examples: Xanthium, Parthenium, Cyprinus rotundus. Next is we talk about, now that was protection in the field. We had come across that when the plants are growing, in the field, then we understand that we have to save them from weeds. We have to save them from fungus, fungicides, weeds, also weedicides we can use, insecticides we can use, and all these. Sometimes if I talk about that, I don't want to use all these chemical substances. I don't want to use any fungicides, weedicides, herbicides, because these are all chemical substances. I don't want to use it. Then what should I do? My guava plants, surrounding my guava plants, I should start planting neem. I have got my mango plants. Surrounding my mango plants, I can start planting the turmeric. So there are many such type of plants. I may start cinnamon. So these are certain type of plants. Never mind, these are also used as spices or a part of our food. But at the same time, these are extremely medicinal in their property because the type of chemical substances that they produce, like say suppose the neem that we talk about, the bitter gourd plants that we talk about, the neem, the bitter gourd plant, the chemicals that they release, the chemical substances that they release, they don't allow any other type of microbial pathogen and nematode to survive. So the area where a neem plant is there, I think you also must have come across neem leaves, if at all you notice a neem tree. The mango leaves, you will come across the mango leaves are eaten away by worms. The mango leaves are eaten away by worms. The mangoes are, there's a whole bone inside because the worm or the caterpillar must have been entered inside. But if I talk about the neem leaves are always fresh. No insect, no caterpillar eats away the neem leaves. I talk about various different type of fruits. I talk about the brinjal. Quite a number of times you cut them and you get to see a worm inside. But that does not happen when we talk about the bitter gourd. Bitter gourd, never there will be any worm. Bitter gourd never get rotten. Why? Because the type of chemical that they produce, the leaf part, the root part, the stem part, and the fruit part, the chemical substances that they produce, even if any type of a worm or pathogen or nematode comes in contact, they will actually die out. So no question of spreading in the entire plant or the surrounding plants. So if I have to save my main plant, I may start growing turmeric, I may start growing neem, I may start growing aloe vera, I may start growing the bitter gourd and all these different type of plants, which as it is has got a lot of medicinal properties. So that is not only saving the soil, but also saving my main plant.
Carnivorous plants to save the plant.
Some carnivores. When we are talking about, but if the carnivorous plants will be able to destroy only the flies and the insects and the fleas, but not the nematodes and the bacteria virus. Understood? What happened? Lemon chip is gone. Is it there? Huh? It's gone, no?
No,
Is it there inside?
no, ma'am.
डेस्क में है नहीं है तो जाके लेना पड़ेगा. You have signed already. You came late. No, you did not sign. No. After the class, you can go and take it. So now, when we are talking about this process of growing medicinal plants surrounding the main crop, what is this called? This particular method is also known as crop protection, because by this method, a crop protection, and this is what is one of the most important step of organic farming. This is one of the most important step of organic farming. So how is organic farming done? Organic farming is always done by this particular process. No weedicide, fungicide, herbicide can be used, but only the usage of different type of plants. Sometimes when we are talking about the aquatic plants, surrounding the plant, there may be growth of certain algae. Maybe certain aquatic plants. Say suppose now I talk about the rice, paddy, corn. All these are generally grown in waterlogged areas. So in those waterlogged areas, some small fishes, carnivorous fishes, some different type of algae, etc., are used, which will eat away the disease-causing germs and protect the main plant. So these are the different methods of how we can control the different type of plants and help them maintain their growth. Next is when we are talking about apart from the plants, what is the other source of food that we have? The other source of food is animal food. So we all are very much dependent on animal food, for example, the milk and the milk products. And then we are also very much dependent on the eggs and the fish and the meat and etc. So now that we talk about the animal products, the process of breeding, caring, rearing of the animal, which are of commercial importance, is known as animal husbandry. I will learn that word. What is animal husbandry? The process of breeding, caring, feeding, and rearing the animals of economic importance is what is known as animal husbandry. Livestock, name some examples of this particular category. Livestock means what? We majorly talk about these are domestic animals which are always reared, cared, and fed because they produce products of great economic importance, commercial importance. What are some of the examples to remember? I talk about the cattle. Cattle provide what? Milk. Cattle provide hide. Cattle provide fur. I talk about the sheep and the goat, the sheep and the camel, etc. This type of fur, also body hair, are also of great economic importance. The hides are also used for various different type of commercial product making. Then we talk about the poultry, the birds. The birds are also very much scientifically reared and cared and bred so that they can produce eggs, they can produce meat. So various different type of plant products. We start with cattle farming. Now cattle farming, you'll have to underline all this in your volume and there's no understanding here, just remember points. Now cattle farming, we are talking about the scientific methods of rearing the cattle. Here, first of all, you have to remember what is the difference between the word indigenous and exotic breeds. What is indigenous breeds? Indigenous breeds means the breeds of our own country. The breeds of India, we will say breeds, these are indigenous breeds. And exotic means breeds from the other countries. Breeds, you have there. So breeds from other countries. There are so many cattle, so many different type of organisms which are coming from other countries to our country, and the process of breeding is practiced, etc. That is the case. We say these are exotic breeds. What are some examples of indigenous breeds of cattle? Underline in your book the Bos Vivalis and the Bos Indicus. Can you find those words? Bos Indicus and Bos Vivalis. Bos Indicus and Bos Vivalis. These are indigenous, Indian cow and Indian buffalo. Bos Vivalis, buffaloes, Bos Indicus, cows. But what should be, okay, first of all, exotic breeds would be what? The brown Swiss and the Jersey. Jersey has been a common breed for years now because of so many good characteristics that this animal has. So when we are talking about now that the Indian breed of cattle, what they are good at? The Indian breed of cattle, they are very much good at protecting or resisting themselves from disease-causing organisms. The Indian breed, now same like us also, no? We can resist all the different type of environmental odds. We don't feel sick so often. But talk about the people around, talk about the people in the Western countries, they have a very, very low immunity. They have a very, very low immunity, little bit of a difference in temperature, weather conditions, etc. They all start falling sick. So even in the COVID time, what happened? Those countries, people suffered and died much more than our country because we have a better, strong immune system. So same like us, our animals. So when we talk about the cattle of our country, they are resistant to disease-causing germs, but the lactation period is short. The lactation period is short. Now what is the meaning? Lactation period means what? Lactation period means the period or the time period till which, put up this time, the time period during which the female cattle is capable of giving or releasing blood, secreting milk, I'm sorry. So when we are talking about lactation period, what is lactation period? The period of time, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. You're feeling hot? Why you feel so hot? You feel hot? So now when we are talking about the lactation period, yeah? 1 year, but I'm speaking, so the sound will not be there. So when we are talking about the lactation period here, underline that word lactation period. What is meant by lactation period? Lactation period means the female cattle, for how many months it can for how many months it can release milk. So we talk about the cow and the buffalo, almost about 10 months of a year they can produce milk. But compared to that, when we are talking about more developed animals, the milk production is only during the process of childbirth. But in case of the cattle, that is not so. They can produce milk almost a major part of the year. But now I'm comparing the Jersey. Jersey is indigenous breed or exotic? Exotic. And I'm talking about the Bos Indicus. Exotic or indigenous? Indigenous. What is good about Bos Indicus? It can protect itself from disease-causing germs quite often. For a larger part of the year, for a greater part of the year, it doesn't suffer from any type of infection. But the milk that it produces, much lesser. The milk that it produces, less nutritive. In comparison, the Jersey, Quite often it suffers from diseases. Very often it catches different type of infection. But the milk that it produces, large amount and very good quality. The milk that it produces, large amount and very good quality. So now, what to do? The breeder may think that why not bring the characteristics of the Jersey and the Boss Indicas together. So what he has to go for? A process known as breeding, hybridization or crossbreed. So you had already talked about hybridization earlier. So a process known as hybridization where the characteristics, here not gene modification, here we are talking about let the characteristics of Boss Indicas and Jersey come together. So the cattle are allowed to breed together, cross breeding, where maybe a female Indian cow is allowed to breed with a male exotic variety. So now that the hybrid will be formed, the hybrid will have probably the good characteristics or the characteristics of both the animal. Now that the hybrid will be formed by breeding a female Jersey and a male Boss Indicas, what will happen? There will be a hybrid form. Now this hybrid will be generally having characteristics like long lactation period and resistant to diseases. But these two characteristics, was it there in the Boss Indicas at the same time? No. These two characteristics, was it there in the Jersey at the same time? No. Then how did we get an animal where both the characteristics are now sent together? By the process of hybridization or crossbreeding. So very much it is possible in the entire plant world also. Crossbreeding, two different type of plants, allow them to breed and a new variety of a plant comes up. So when we talk about potato and tomato, we talk about tomato. We talk about the radish and the carrot. What is it? Radish. When we talk about the radish and the carrot, there was a name. What is it? No. Radish and the carrot. There was a name.
Radish.
Radish. Radish and the carrot. Carish, I think so. Radish and the carrot. Then we talk about various other type of plants are there where hybrids have always been made.
Ma'am, I have heard that broccoli is also.
Broccoli is made between the broccoli is made out of genetic modification, not hybridization actually, from those original variety of cauliflower.
But hybridization is only with genetic modification.
No. Hybridization is you just take two parts of two plants and put them together and let the cells fuse. You are not doing any modification on your own at the level of the DNA. If I have to talk about genetic modification, only one plant, make genetically modified and then grow. So there are so many like the tomato, there is the hybrid, and then we talk about many animals also which were tried in one particular period of time, something like the lion and the tiger. Lion and the tiger it is. Tiger. Then we talk about the deer and the donkey and the horse, the mule and the donkey actually. So these type of hybrids were made, but in animals it was not allowed. So we don't get to know too many hybrids in animals, but in plants so many on this. So here we have come across that what would be some of the reasons why crossbreed should be practiced. Why crossbreed should be practiced in the case of animal hybridization? Yes. Why crossbreeding? To get an improved variety. Because certain times we come across the indigenous varieties does not have some special properties and the exotic varieties also does not have some special properties, but they may be good at some other characteristics. So why not undergo a process of crossing between them, crossbreeding between them, so that we get an animal or a plant which has got characteristics of both the parents. Now, looking at this food requirement. Now that we talk about the cattle, we are talking about the cattle farming. What are the two types of cattle? One is known as the drought cattle. One is known as the drought cattle. What is it? The drought cattle, and the other is known as the milch cattle. So cattle can be of two types. What are the two types of cattle? One is the drought cattle. The drought cattle. And what is the other one? The other one is the milch. So the milch cattle are basically the milk yielding varieties. The milch cattle are basically the female which are producing the milk. And the drought varieties are basically the males, the male cattle, the bull, the buffaloes. Now these are basically the male varieties which are constantly used in the field for carrying the loads and plowing the field. So drought varieties are majorly meant for labor. Drought varieties are majorly meant for labor, and the milch varieties are majorly meant for production of milk. So should the diet given to these two group of animals, these two group of cattle be the same?
No.
Obviously not. Because if I talk about the diet which has to be given to the milch varieties, should be rich in protein, rich in fat, because we want the milk to be a rich source of protein, fat, and mineral and vitamin. But at the same time, when we are talking about the drought varieties, meaning the males, they should be given food rich in carbohydrate, protein, because only their muscles should develop in large amounts so that they can take up such heavy loads and do the process of plowing for long hours. So see there are two types of feed which is given to the cattle. One is known as the roughage, and what is it made up of? Hay, fodder, silage, legumes, berseem, lucerne, cowpea. So these are the different type of substances, food material which are mixed together, and a paste or a semi-fluid substance is made, and then that is what is given to the cattle. When we talk about cattle feed, we generally have a notion cattle feed means grasses or green leaves. But the cattle which are reared, scientifically reared and cared and bred for certain commercially rich products, we cannot just give them grasses to eat, because grasses have hardly, these are sources of glucose and few mineral vitamin. But then the cattle should get large amount of protein in its diet and fats in its diet. We talk about concentrates. See, their concentrates are basically low in fiber and high level of protein and other nutrients. So what is there in the concentrates? Various different type of cereals like the maize, oat, barley, jowar, broken grams, polished cotton, rice polished, cotton, seeds, bran, molasses, oil seeds, etc., mixed with water. So many, we don't even have an idea that how much food is actually given to the cattle when we talk about a proper management of the cattle farm. Because we may feel that the cattle is only fed on hay and grasses and they give good quality of milk, not that. When we talk about the best quality milk and the best quality milk products, obviously now the cattle has to be given the good quality feed. So the concentrates and the roughage. So the roughage would be basically given to the drought varieties. Roughage would be basically given to the drought varieties, because why? They need only to develop their muscles. The drought variety should develop their muscles. And concentrate should be given to the milch varieties, because they are the ones who are going to give rise to the milk. The milch varieties. Additives. Can you see there? Additives. Apart from your food, do you take some health drinks?
No.
Apart from your food, don't you drink any health drinks? You drink? It's like health drinks like Ensure or some Complan or some Horlicks or some etc. Used to. Huh? So now that I talk about, there are many children, even we also say, suppose apart from our food, we would take in some tonics, or we would take in some children would also take in some Ensure, protein drinks, etc. Why is that? As you said, that right now you all are not taking any additives. What is the meaning of additives? Apart from food.
Extra add-ons.
Extra. But why to take that? In case any deficiencies
Deficiency of
built up,
nutrients.
because we may not balance our food every day and eat. So in case there is any deficiency left, then these additives can fill up. Especially rich in protein. Additives are basically that we take are rich in protein and vitamins. The additives that we are supposed to take, we don't take rich source of carbohydrate, of course, because carbohydrate is as it is there in our food. So what type of additives we are supposed to take in? We take in food which is rich in or protein powder or any other type of a supplement rich in vitamin, mineral or protein. But why do we do that? So that, say suppose I talk about certain group of people, now we are different group of people with different food habits. We may come across in one group of people the protein intake may be very high, and in another group the protein intake may be very low, depending on what type of food we eat. So Yes, small amount of additives if we can take, then that always protects us from any type of a deficiency. So in case of the animal, what are the additives? Additives in case of the animal also can be in the form of hormones, hormone injections, hormones. And what are these hormones going to do for that animal? The hormones are going to improve the height and the growth and the production of milk for that animal. So the hormones and the addition of these different type of other nutritive substances to the food, that is what is known as additives. Does the cattle suffer from any diseases? Yes, cattle also suffer from variety of viral, bacterial and protozoan disease. What is a protozoa? A single-celled organism. So every particular cattle also suffers from variety of diseases. So that's the reason from time to time, how to protect them from diseases. What are we supposed to do? How do we protect ourselves from diseases? Right from the time you are small.
Vaccines.
Huh? Vaccines. So your parents also constantly kept on giving you vaccines right from the time you were 6 months. And that's the reason maybe by today also, hardly 1 or 2 times you must have suffered from any dreadful disease. Or some may not have suffered at all. But how is this protection being brought about? How did your parents been able to protect you? Because they had already injected vaccines inside your body. Same like that, the plants also can be protected by injecting vaccines in them. Plant vaccines are also there. Poultry, what is the meaning of poultry? Which type of birds are we talking about?
It's
Chicken, hen, chicken. Okay. Now, again, first of all, underline the exotic breed and the indigenous breed. What is the indigenous breed known as Asi? And the exotic breed is known as Leghorns. The exotic breed is known as the Leghorns and the indigenous breed is known as Asi. So the moment I talk about the word indigenous breed, you should very well be aware that the moment I talk about indigenous breed, the product of the food that they give rise to will not be that good in quality, but they are very much resistant to disease-causing germs. The Indian indigenous varieties, in most of the cases, we come across that the productivity is less, productivity is slow, small. But these plants are very good in resisting themselves from different type of disease-causing germs. Let us talk about some examples. When we are talking about poultry farming, again, a seed is the indigenous breed, and what is the exotic breed? Underline Leghorns. Leghorns. Leghorns are the exotic breeds. So if a crossbreed is made between Leghorns and Asil, what is the indigenous breed? Asil. If a crossbreed is made between Leghorns and Asil, we are going to come across the characteristics of both this plant in the same, both this poultry in the new generation single poultry farming. Did you see poultry farming?
Yes, ma'am. I will see that I have
Two pages.
two same chapters in the same.
Two same chapters in the same book.
I have this improvement in two resources here and I have the same chapters at the back.
Hence you have to take everything. So now when we are talking about this particular concept, try understanding poultry farming. What are some of the basic characteristics of the indigenous breeds? Indigenous breeds, again, number one, resistant to diseases. These birds, which are the indigenous birds that we are talking about? The poultry are the one which have got brownish red feathers. Chicken which has got brownish red feathers. These are the indigenous breeds. And Leghorn that we talk about, the broilers or the Leghorns, which are always whitish. And they may have got a red, hat-like structure. So these are the Leghorns. Now what is so special about the Leghorns? They may be very, very sensitive to disease-causing germs, but then the eggs that they lay is of a bigger size and extremely nutritive. The meat that they produce is extremely nutritive. So these birds are quite fleshy, as in comparison with the thin and sturdy Asil. Asil is not fleshy at all. The amount of flesh or meat on the body of the Asil is very, very less. But then what about the egg production? Does it produce? Yes, it produces in lesser number, and the egg size is also not that big, and the nutritive quality is also not that big.
But these are like a large amount of meat. From like they say they are sold like expensive.
If they are farmed, when they are farmed, the local breed is not that expensive. But if they are farmed, yes, because at that time they are given special feed and hygiene and everything, so obviously the eggs become more expensive now. So here when we are talking about the two breeds, the indigenous and the exotic, again, can we crossbreed? Yes, we can crossbreed. So what are we going to get after crossbreeding? An improved variety. And this improved variety, how will it benefit? This improved variety will have maximum good characteristics and hardly any bad characteristic or undesirable characteristic. Next is look into this egg and broiler production, nutritional and environmental requirement. So when we are talking about nutritional requirement, now let us learn here one point that the eggs which are released by these birds is one of the best source of protein. It's a very, very nutritive food. It's a very, very nutritive food. But remember, do the chicken feed on such nutritive feed to give rise to such nutritive product? No. They hardly feed on some broken grains and nuts and rice, pollution, etc., etc. That is what is given them as feed when we are talking about the scientific rearing, caring. So at the same time, these birds which have been reared in the farm, they eat only few grains all throughout the day. They would eating few grains all throughout the day, but the product that they give rise to is eggs, and which are extremely nutritive. So there's a question that you are asked also that explain how that the poultry. Okay, read this question. It is interesting to know that. Read this question. Did you read this answer? What are you understanding from here? The poultry are given such cheap food. The poultry are never given any costly or any expensive food at all as in comparison with the fishes or other different animals. So they are given such cheap food, but even though they are consuming only those fine grains and nuts and some cereals, what are they giving rise to? Egg, which has got so many nutrients in it, major source of proteins and fats, and mineral and vitamins also. It has got so many different type of nutrients, so we understand that it is interesting to know that the poultry is India's most efficient converter. It is a converter of low fiber to high protein food. Layers and broilers. Check the differences. What are the basic differences? Two types of birds now that we talk about would be layers and broilers. What is the meaning of layers? These are the egg-laying organisms, egg-laying birds. What about the broilers? The broilers are basically the broilers are basically heavy in their flesh, whitish, heavy flesh, majorly meant for meat. So if I talk about the broilers and the layers at one particular day, if they are releasing something around 15 eggs, the broilers will be hardly producing 4 eggs. So there's a long difference. So the broilers and the layers that we are
different between the quality
of the eggs, very much, because when you are talking about the local breeds, where no hormone injections, nothing are made, so obviously this is safer to consume because it does not have all those unwanted chemical substances. When I talk about the broiler, the egg of the broiler may be big in size, but the nutrient quality may be much lower than the local breed. The nutrient quality will be lower, but the size may be appreciably big.
Chicken breed produces brown eggs.
That is, when we are talking about the chicken breed does not produce, it is in the process of farming, the hormone injections. When we are talking about the hormone injections are giving and the eggs are laid without fertilization. Without fertilization. Next is we talk about the differences. Now I want you to read those differences. Layers and broilers. Read these differences. Those of you who don't have the volume, read from here. These are at least 2 points of differences you should remember. 2 points of differences you should remember. Broilers and layers. The term itself, layers, means they are the egg laying forms. They are the egg laying forms. The first point, the third point. What type of feed the layers require, what type of feed the broilers require. Now we move on to fish production. Fish production. So now this last point in your volume, please take this is important when you are asked to write differences. This point obviously you should write. This point obviously you should write. And certain questions based on that also you come across. Fish production, now that we understand.
The other one it says they need restricted and calculated feed with vitamin, minerals, and micronutrients. But in this question, it is told that it is an effective converter of low fiber food. So why would it need like vitamin?
Vitamin B, vitamins, variety of vitamins it requires so that to make its product rich in mineral and vitamin. That is why. But low converter, it's a converter of low fiber food, meaning
Low fiber food is
it only feeds on some seeds and grains, etc. That is its feed. So what is the feed that it consumes? Almost nothing. But then the product that it gives is so nutritive, so big in size, etc., etc. So that is one. But when we have to concentrate on the feed of the poultry, we also have to add on adequate amount of mineral vitamin because the flesh that we eat, especially layers when they are in farm, the flesh that we eat should of course be a rich source of proteins and some minerals and some minerals. Look into this fish production now that we talk about. To talk about fish production, we have to understand fishes grow in the aquatic medium. So what are the 2 types of aquatic medium? Aquatic or water body, 2 types? Marine water body and fresh water body. So what is the basic difference between the marine water body and fresh water body? Marine water body means which have got a higher concentration of salt. Marine water body, high concentration of salt. Can you give me 1 or 2 examples of the marine water body? Sea, ocean, marine water body. But when I talk about the fresh water body, the salt concentration is much lesser. Example, river, lake, pond, fountains. These are all, these are the rivers. So these rivers are always a smaller source of water, small flowing body of water. But in comparison with the sea and the ocean, they are actually small. So when we are talking about the 2 types of water bodies, what are the 2 types of water bodies? Fresh water or sweet water. Fresh water and marine means salt water. Are you aware about some examples in the fresh water? See the type of organisms in the fresh water and the type of organisms in the saline water, salty water will be absolutely different. I talk about the whale. Though whale is a mammal, but I talk about the whale and the dolphin and the shark. And some big fishes like the seahorse and all these things we get to see in the ocean and the sea. But we want to ship them into the river. Can they survive?
No.
No, in the river they will not be able to survive. But I get to see some lotuses growing on the river, on the banks of the river. Or I get to see some type of animals, something like the deer. Something like the deer is dependent on the river. So now that we talk about the river, there are so many animals which are dependent on the river water. Correct? And now, when I look into the river and the sea, first of all, try understanding that these 2 types of water bodies are absolutely different in terms of their vegetation also. I talk about fishes like the rohu, katla, some different type of eel fishes and etc. We get in the river or the big lake. The same rohu, katra, etc. Put them in the sea, they will die. They will die. But at the same time, I talk about the sardines and the pomfret and the tuna and the mackerel. All these from the sea, I put them in the river now. Then also they will die. Either you take the fishes from river and put them in the sea, they will die. The moment you take the fishes from the sea and put them in the river, they will die. Why? Because the property of the water is different. These animals, these fishes like the tuna and the sardines and the mackerel and the prawn, etc., they are always used to high salinity in the water, high amount of salt in the water. So high amount of salt helps in their proper growth. Can we swap? Can we switch? No. We cannot. Bring one shark in the big river also. I take one shark, a small baby shark, and put them in the river. It will die in few days. Because that less amount of salt and the type of organisms in the river water will not allow it to survive for long. So mark in your book also, we were discussing about fish production. So we'll have to continue from here to next class. And next class, even all of you have your notebooks. We are almost finishing with this chapter. You have to only understand the basic concept, names and examples. We will practice some questions also the next class.
Oh shoot. बड़ा था नींद आ रही थी।
ये आज बस 3 घंटे सो रहा था। आज बस 3 घंटे सो रहा था। रात को देखो।
ये तो उधर। यार तू क्यों कष्ट करता है मैं कर लूंगा